Back once again with the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Of course, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB, talking some Chiefs football here. Andy Reid plans to return. I didn't even know this was a question, but apparently it was. That got answered on Monday. We'll talk about it. Chris Oladokun, what has he proven in his time as the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs? What's the plan for Brashard Smith moving forward? 3 targets, no catches for Xavier Worthy. It's becoming par for the course. That's a problem. Chiefs allow only 1 sack with a banged-up offensive line, and the secondary holding up again without Trent McDuffie. These are the things we're going to talk about right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis, off and running here on a Tuesday night. Thanks for joining us. If you are catching us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation in the chat room. We go Tuesdays at 9:30, a little late. I'll take full blame for that. That's all my fault, so I apologize for being late. I will not, however, share with you why, because it's the dumbest reason that there's ever been. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Instead, let's discuss Andy Reid's return. I didn't know this was in doubt, Sam, but this has been a big thing. I guess, in fact, he's 67 years old. It's a legit question at this point. But I think I'm coming back. If they'll have me back, I'll come back. You never know in this business, so that's a tough question, but I plan on it. What's your reaction to those comments from Andy Reid?
Well, I had a different reaction, actually, after I tweeted it out, because, look, social media is not usually the best judge for general consensus and majority thought, but I'm telling you, 100% of the replies were people who did not want him back. Wow. And I just think, like, in this town, of all towns, should know how much worse it can get. And look, I'm saying it's short-sighted to want a different head coach, but I'll give people credit for that. It's not short-sighted to want change. And I do think he will be 68. How much change is he willing to invoke in his offense at 68 years old? And it prompted me to look up some numbers with this. And, I don't think these numbers will stun people as far as where the Chiefs are, but maybe in comparison to the rest of the league, it might. In the last 2 seasons combined, the Chiefs have topped 30 points 5 times. Only 6 teams have done it fewer than 5 in the last 2 seasons combined. Those 6 teams' combined record is 44-154. They win fewer than 25% of their games. When you change it to 31 points or more, because the Chiefs have scored exactly 33 times, they've only scored 31 or more twice. Only the Raiders have done it fewer over the last 2 years. And these numbers can't be true for the team that employs Patrick Mahomes. Like, there are worse quarterback run offenses performing better. And I do think a major part of when Andy Reid goes through his offseason, he has to ask himself why. And more importantly, how? How are worse performing quarterbacks putting together better offenses and better offensive numbers than they are? So he's coming back, but I don't think it can be the exact same Andy Reid offense that returns with him.
Jeff, is the bigger question to ask how they didn't progress this year? Is it like to go back and figure out why they didn't see a need for change already before it seemed to hit what is, certainly without Patrick Mahomes, rock bottom offensively, where they can't even, sniff 200 yards of offense? Is the bigger question like what went wrong as to why they didn't have a better plan coming into this year?
Well, I think the reason is that they've had so much success doing what they've been doing. No matter how the stats look, they've been in a lot of Super Bowls and won 3 over the last 7 years. So that's probably the biggest reason. They just fell in love with what they were doing. And it's not uncommon. Most teams who have this level of success or who win multiple championships or have long runs of sustained success tend to believe that they've got all the answers. And over time, that doesn't bear out in the NFL. That can work in other leagues, NBA, Major League Baseball, but in the NFL, it's all fluid. And other teams are looking at what you're doing. I said this 5 years ago, when the Chiefs got on this run 6 years ago, that people thought, this is going to last forever. I'm telling you, people will draft to beat you. They will craft game plans to beat you. They will employ coaches to beat you. And over time, you will see a change. And now you're seeing what that change looks like. The Chiefs fell behind the rest of the league. And Sam is right. Does Andy Reid want to change now? Because the biggest thing that's happened is that the era has changed. We're past the point of people being able to throw the football all over the place and score 35 points a game. Now it's about playing good defense and running the football and playing more efficiently with the quarterback because people aren't giving you those big plays the Chiefs got 7 years ago. And so can he change his ego and his mindset to embrace that philosophy, because he is not somebody who's ever liked running the football. And that's what has to be done for this team to move forward offensively.
Yeah. Was this ever though in doubt, Sam? Did you ever think that there was a chance that either Andy Reid and or the Chiefs would be saying we're going a different direction at the end of this year?
No. I've always thought after 2026 was the first year that I'd really start to look at how many years left.
Why was that your benchmark?
Well, frankly, just from things I had been told in the past, that I thought he would at least coach through 26 and probably longer. But that I thought made some sense to start asking that question. And look, it makes sense to ask this question every year, to be honest. Like, I don't fault Matt Derrick at all for asking Andy Reid about this, because it was 3 years ago that Jay Glazer interrupted a Super Bowl. Mike Florio has tried to interrupt every week of every conversation with this. Like, so it is a topic. And so I don't fault Matt Derrick at all for asking the question. And to be honest, I was a little surprised Andy was so adamant, because typically he's not. And I think he's uncomfortable answering questions that he feels like isn't entirely up to him. But Andy Reid's earned the right for this to be entirely up to him. And, when you go through it, it'll be 14 years in Kansas City. He spent 14 years in Philadelphia. I mean, I think because of his accomplishments in Kansas City, he's more of a Chiefs coach than an Eagles coach. But he's getting to where he will have coached more games in Kansas City than he will in Philadelphia. Not to sort of hug the ball here, but I thought Jeff's point was a great one on when I say Andy Reid can't be the same offensive coach exactly that he was this year and last year. He hit what I'm talking about, because it is not uncommon at all. I know people talk about the fact that Andy Reid's been figured out, and the Chiefs have had a dynasty. So if you want to win Super Bowls, what team do you need to figure out? Sean McDermott said it like 4 years ago. He said, we're building our team to beat the Chiefs. And he just had the balls to say it. Everyone else has been doing it, though, because why else wouldn't you? That's the team you have to beat. And so if every team is spending their more energy on you than the Chiefs are afforded to spend on all the other 31, it's going to get decoded at some point. And I mentioned the dynasty. Andy Reid is at the forefront of this dynasty, but now he needs to be at the forefront of adjusting back to the way teams have adjusted to him. And it's what Jeff pointed out. Teams are putting little people on the field and putting less of the big dudes on the field. And other teams have adjusted to it. The Bills run the ball more than they pass it with Josh Allen. You've got to be better at running the football, and you also have to commit to it. And I don't know that That hasn't been in Andy Reid's DNA, and he's got to make it part of his DNA this offseason. And that's not to say don't play Patrick Mahomes. It's to say to make life easier for Patrick Mahomes.
What evidence, Jeff, is there that a 67, 68-year-old guy is the guy to, now make the adjustments? I get your point where you say, like, hey, they've been winning. Why change? It's one of the reasons why I think the team that lost always has the advantage in a second meeting when you play within a season, like when the divisional games, because first team almost has to do what they did the first game. Otherwise, everyone's going to be like, well, it worked the first time, you idiots. Why'd you change it up? So you're kind of a slave to what worked before. So there's kind of that at play here for the Chiefs. Like, hey, we went to 3 straight Super Bowls. Why are we going to change it up? Well, the reason would be because, that's great. History will help tell you what's coming in the future, but it doesn't play the games for you. Can you think of a time this late in a guy's career when he seemed to have been kind of found out that suddenly he was able to ramp it back up and move past everyone who had caught him?
Well, there aren't many coaches who have gone this late into the game. So he's kind of in uncharted territory outside of a Bill Belichick. Every contemporary of Andy Reid has stopped coaching a long time ago. I think Bruce Arians is probably the last one, and he wasn't really a long-term contemporary. He kind of came in late in the game.
Well, Pete Carroll, and he's collapsing in Vegas.
Exactly. I was about to go to him next, and you're seeing that doesn't really. It's hard to sustain this stuff. And the big thing with Andy that I look at is just with his age is, if you really want to commit to a different style of offense, and one you have to figure out, is Patrick Mahomes comfortable with that? Because he's never really been comfortable doing a lot of this stuff they're talking. This small ball, matriculate the ball down the field, move the chains type offense. So does he like the idea of this? And is he comfortable being under center more, doing the things Josh Allen does and Brock Purdy and Matthew Stafford do? But the big thing is you have to change your core. And that takes time, because you can do that when you can change your offense with the Chicago Bears. You got a whole bunch of money to spend, and you can go find players and rebuild your offensive line. They got to go find tight ends, different kinds of tight ends. They got to go find different kinds of receivers. Got to go find a running back. And and they got to draft a lot of these guys, right? And so you're not going to hit on all these dudes right away. So it's probably going to be at least a couple years before this whole idea of changing the offense, if they do that, it materializes. And so that's really the time he wants to commit to that is the good thing I ask more than
because that's one of the things. What does it mean for the 2026 Chiefs? Does it mean that if they, does it mean that they tape 25 back together? Do they convince themselves that it was just injuries along the offensive line and, some close games that went against them that, no, we're really close? And do they tape 25's version back together? Which to me, 25 is just the 24 version all over again, right? Like we mentioned it, but there's 2 players in free agency that they changed out in their draft, and everybody changes their draft. So there was not real wholesale, advancements made by this team other than Christian Fulton in for Justin Reed and Jalen Moore added to the offensive line. Otherwise, all you've added to the mix is a draft class. Does this signal that they are going to give this group one more shot, Sam? Is that what this signals if Andy Reid's going to be back? Can we not see that kind of true change, that true kind of overhaul without a different guy calling the shots?
Well, I mean, the change is going to be limited by their salary cap situation. I mean, it's the hard reality of where the Chiefs are based on everything you just laid out for what they did last offseason, which was keeping this whole thing together. And so, I think they're going to be limited on exactly how much they can change, because their personnel, and Jeff talks about this more than anyone, is drafted to fit what they like to do. And they haven't collected the exact talent just to go out and play in any scheme. I mean, Xavier Worthy is someone who they think fits their specific need. And so, I look, there'll absolutely be change at the running back position. There'll be change at defensive line. Like, us saying that the Chiefs need help at running back and defensive line is not going to be news to the Chiefs whenever they embark on their offseason plans. And after, which starts, next week. And so, I anticipate that there will be some change, but like I keep warning people, these major overhauls, I think we're going to be talking more about guys that they've lost as opposed to guys they're bringing in, because there's only so much they can do.
Yeah, I think it shines the light on the Trent McDuffie situation, like, because that's the only way. They need draft picks. You talk about needing to make trades. Jeff, like they don't have enough draft picks or needing to draft players. They don't have enough draft picks to overhaul the team. Like
Well, let's move that up our list, Soren, because we've got that on our list. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yes. I mean, about the secondary you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it. Let's do this. I don't want to get behind, so let's take a break, and we'll bump that up the list, and we'll get into the secondary. How well it did play without Trent McDuffie, because I think it's significant. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's talk about the secondary. Let's go to it. The secondary was fine. Noah Williams played more. Christian Fulton played more. That was a positive for this team. The secondary's played well now, Sam. 3 games without Trent McDuffie being back there. What kind of statement does that make to this team?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Noah Williams was terrific against the Broncos, and more versatile than we've seen him throughout the rest of the season. I mean, Noah Williams has been sort of pigeonholed into this, just cover your guy, because we heard Dave Merritt say that you shouldn't be that far behind when you're playing cornerback for a rookie, because we're not asking you to see the whole field, and they haven't with Noah Williams. They've asked him to see the man and play press coverage. Well, they asked him in this game to rush the passer twice, and he put pressure on the quarterback both times. I thought he was great in the running game. He was sticking his nose in there in the running game too. Having said that, I still am going to say, you don't trade Trent McDuffie because you think the other guys on the roster are as good as Trent McDuffie. You trade Trent McDuffie because of the conversation we just had. You need to switch this thing up. And your best outlet to doing that is collecting draft picks similar to what you did with Tyreek Hill and switching it up through the draft. The cheapest way you can get change to your roster is going to be through the draft, and their best avenue to collecting picks is with Trent McDuffie.
Yeah. How about you, Jeff? I mean, is this set the course on what happens this offseason, the way they've played without him?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I mean, at this stage, I don't see how you can, given your salary cap situation, the money you've invested in other guys who I think are lesser players than Trent McDuffie, but you made the decision to give them the money, and so you can't keep the notion that you can hold on to everybody you like. And Trent McDuffie has value. He plays a position that has limited value, depending on who you talk to, and he really is. I think he's proven to be an exceptional slot corner who can move outside when he has to. To be a $30 million corner in this league, you got to be able to play outside and match up with the Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chases and all those guys, George Pickens. He's not suited to deal with those bigger guys who can run and make the dynamic plays. And so he's not going to get the kind of haul that Sauce Gardner got, but I'm sure he's going to have value, and you need to do that. Look, there's been all kinds of great defensive players traded in this league. Micah Parsons just got traded from Dallas started this year. Jalen Ramsey's been traded 2 or 3 times, and he's been one of the best, probably a Hall of Fame corner, the way he's played. They'll be fine without him, because this is not about holding on to what you have. Probably the big takeaway from this season is they have to cut ties with what they were and start building what they're going to become, right? This is where they're at now. And so, yeah, you can keep some people and maybe be a 10-win team if things go right in Mahomes next year. They're not winning a championship next year with what we have right now, what they have right now. And so start building towards 27, 28, when you still have Mahomes in his prime and you can still do some stuff.
I'll mention this a couple of the comments. I don't think Trent is going to bring back huge draft pick compensation. I agree.
I do.
Well, it depends on what your definition
It's
of huge
huge.
is. If your definition is Sauce Gardner return,
That
no,
ain't happening.
because
that's
you're
pie in the sky. Yeah.
you're asking the other team to pay the cap. Part of the reason Sauce Gardner brought back what he was because the signing bonus stayed in New York and much of the cap hit stayed in New York.
Yeah.
This situation, you will be taking on all of it with Trent McDuffie. So it's not going to be as attractive. And, I think the other part is, we've mentioned this as well. They might not have to trade McDuffie if they hadn't signed a guard and a linebacker. I mean, they have to get to a point.
If only someone had said that in the
There's only a podcast out there that have been going, okay.
Yeah.
But they have to get to the point to where they're a year ahead of things, right? They always talk about, we want to keep the window open as long as possible, but they really haven't acted that way with the way they've signed people. And we mentioned this before, but when you went to Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and Creed Humphrey said, okay, I'll sign, and Trey Smith said no, Trey Smith should have been traded then. Not playing one more year, then franchising him playing another year. You should have been traded then. Like, that has to be, you sign early or you flip them for picks. You have no choice but to draft well. If you're afraid of the draft, get out of the business. Like, you have no choice but to be effective in the draft. So you've got to keep flipping these players, and they haven't done that. And you might not have. Personally, I don't believe. I think corners are a one contract position. I don't think you ever want to be tied into a giant contract with a cornerback because they're after 25, 26, they slow down, and it's not as good a spot. And if I'm the Chiefs, I'm worried that everybody else is figuring that out as well, because they're not screaming about how much they love the Sauce Gardner trade in Indianapolis right now.
Well, there's a couple things to that. When you're slower, you can move inside, and we know Trent McDuffie excels there. So I think his floor becomes higher than some of these other guys, like Jalen Ramsey in Pittsburgh having to play safety, for example. But when I mentioned the draft compensation, I think the floor for Trent McDuffie is like a second and other picks, and I think you potentially could get a first-round pick for McDuffie because it only takes one, and I wouldn't rule it out. Them getting a first-round pick. I think it's more likely you get like a second and fourth or something of that sort. And a second and fourth is pretty darn high draft compensation when you're talking about a player, because it's not just the picks, it's the cap space that you gain from a deal like that as well. That was what was always lost in the Tyreek Hill trade in the aftermath when people revisit it. They got $28 million in cap space for that trade as well.
Yeah. Well, and you also have people out there who are friendly with Brett Veach who might be willing to do that deal. Like, I could see Ryan Poles doing that deal in Chicago, or Carolina doing it. They got some people down there that we know. Certainly,
I think Tennessee's going to do it, but
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to take another corner.
Yeah. This one's a little healthier, than the last one.
Different regime.
It is.
It
is.
But I want to say that part of where they're at and having to do these kind of things and paying the price for some of these moves is that organizationally, this team made a big decision back when Mahomes took off and this team took off to squeeze every last bit of juice out of this they could get, because they wanted to be a big brand. They wanted to be global. They wanted to do Chiefs Kingdom and all this stuff. And they've done it. The marketing part of this, the business, the promotional part of this has been exceptional. But like you said, when you get on that train, it's hard to say, hey, maybe we can be an 11-win team this year and not win a championship. Like, you always want to be at the front of the line. But when you play it that way, you get to this point and it gets ugly real fast, right? And so you start having these tougher conversations that should have been had a couple of years ago to keep this thing going. That's why New England was able to keep it going so smoothly, because they were willing to trade all these star players. But people said, what are you doing? We can't let these guys go. Well, yeah, you can, because we want to keep winning down the road and stay competitive.
And when did the Chiefs ever made a business decision, Jeff?
Yeah.
Listen, I do also think it's tougher when you're 67 years old and the head coach to be thinking about what's the move for 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's against your natural instinct. Andy Reid older coaches have to act against their instinct and say, listen, we are better this year if I have Trey Smith, but we are better in 26, 27, 28, and 29 if I don't. And you walk away. And you have to have that, to me, you have to have that vision. like I said, 2 years ago, when he doesn't sign on for the number you're offering, you make the best offer, then you move. And that's make the business decision. That's a good football business decision. They didn't do it. And so now they're forced to do it, I think, with Trent McDuffie. I don't think there's any way around it where it sits right now. Chris Oladokun, has he proven he should be the backup next year, Jeff?
I don't think so. I like some of the things I've seen, some of the flashes, but he's been here for 4 years now, right? Is that right? I mean,
28.
I would hope that he'd be a little more evolved, as a player. Not that he's just going to go out there and set the world on fire. And Denver's a really tough defense to play against, and they had something to play for. But 66 passing yards is still 66 passing yards.
I do not understand, Sam, where this.
I don't either.
We got something here. Stuff is coming.
He completed 0 passes beyond 10 yards.
Yeah.
Like when we talk downfield passing, we talk 20 yards. He didn't complete a pass 10 yards downfield and only attempted 3. Like, he's a great dude. He's a great story. And, having a great story. I mean, I wrote after the Titans game, why didn't the Chiefs try for more great stories? Because they have other young guys that they could have played. And he's one of Patrick Mahomes' best friends. Not a bad idea to keep your quarterback happy. It's better than Aaron Rodgers and saying, I want 4 receivers that I can have. Like, having a practice squad quarterback is not a big ask for your franchise quarterback. And the other part of the QB too is I would just say, who are you competing with to get him back on your practice squad next year?
Yeah, no, it is amazing to me how the legend of Chris Oladokun has just grown and grown and grown. And I'm like, they're in the game, but that's literally all they are, is in the game, right? It's not like they're thriving, that they're blowing up. They're just hanging around in the game.
Man, he had Hollywood Brown on that last pass. I'll say that. Into the end zone. He had him.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about, I was trying to look up Tyler Huntley with the Ravens, who's actually played and won games for them. Who's an undrafted guy too.
Same or a better record than Lamar Jackson this year, like win percentage wise?
He might, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, that's a guy who was in a similar circumstance who's way more developed as a player for a franchise that's got a star quarterback playing.
To be clear, like, I think Chris Oladokun's gotten the most out of his talent.
Yes.
And it's a compliment to him that it was not an utter train wreck out there, because you put Chris Oladokun from 4 years ago out there, it's probably a train wreck.
Yes.
Out there. And it was not that. And so I think he has worked his ass off to get to this point. But he has a ceiling, and that ceiling is higher than 99.9% of the rest of football players. But it's not an NFL quarterback 2 ceiling.
Lilliputian is the word you're looking for.
Well,
that's a stealing.
Listen, I think, like, if you want to carry 3 and you want Chris Oladokun to be your 3rd, if you want to get him back on the practice squad, that's fine. But we pointed out that Gardner Minshew, by days, weeks, a couple of months, was the first time that the backup quarterback was younger than Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying you're out there in the draft looking for Patrick Mahomes' replacement. But it would be, it's tough when you're always trading up and you don't have that many draft picks, but it's not a bad idea for them to spend a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th on a quarterback. Number one, especially if it were a big guy that you could run a sneak with. I know Kareem Hunt's been effective, but I don't know how long he's going to be in that role. But, it wouldn't be the worst thing to, like, actually develop another young quarterback. Again, not develop him to take Patrick Mahomes' job, because I think that's still 5 years away draft from where you're actually looking for that. But it's okay to have a talent, in the quarterback room that could maybe do something, right? That's because guess what? You take a quarterback in the 3rd round, he's really cheap. And we know you need really cheap. And so, it's not going to happen. I don't think they're going to even consider it. But, like, what you're getting now for league minimum, like Gardner Minshew didn't look good. Let's be honest. And he's making what, 1.5? Like, you're getting what you paid for. I'd just assume be paying $600,000 for a young guy that maybe Andy Reid can find something,
or you can find one of these guys, and I don't know who would be in this position this coming season, but who's failed somewhere and looking for a new start and is cheap and willing to come in and sit around and try to get his career jump started. These guys who seem to wind up in Minnesota, behind, with Kevin O'Connell, or with San Francisco with Shanahan, or in Baker Mayfield went to Sean McVay, and won a game for Sean McVay when he was down in the dumps. I mean, these guys are circling around as well. And to me, it speaks to the fact that do they not want to come here because they don't think they're going to get any kind of chance to develop themselves?
Well, I think
places.
I think the odds of playing are so much slimmer, which is why I think the backup quarterback for the Chiefs becomes a lot more attractive job, given the situation with Patrick Mahomes and his injury.
Well, I want to point something out. Like you mentioned, San Francisco, 2 years, $8 million is what San Francisco gave Mac Jones. Yeah. So I mean that's not, that's not that much, but for where the Chiefs are right now, that is a lot. And Sam Darnold, I want to go back and look through his history. When he signed on with the Vikings, it was 1 year, $10 million. So those guys like, and I think Marcus Mariota's on a 2 for like 7 or 8. Zach Wilson, you want to take a shot at that? Like, I think he was down in Miami, and they haven't let him anywhere near the field. I think he's in Miami. That kind of guy. Okay,
Mariota's a 1 for 8, I think.
Is it 1 for 8? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little more than you might originally think of what it is. We want to get into Brashard Smith. We want to get into Xavier Worthy. We'll do that right after you hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222. Or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's talk a little bit about Brashard Smith. 0 carries. He does have 3 catches for 5 yards, targeted 4 times. Did score a touchdown. What do we see in Brashard Smith, Jeff, off this, how they used him and what they got from him?
I see a player with a very limited future in this franchise. If you're not, he was sold through people like Louis Riddick as being this huge weapon, that could be unleashed as the season went by. And it's becoming more apparent that they just don't see him as a guy who can really be a great threat out of the backfield as a primary ball carrier. I don't see the world that we live in now where he's going to be that much of a threat as a receiver. I just don't know what he is. I think he's a return guy, but I know he's going to be a return guy. That's probably where his best value lies. But if you can't get on the field in these situations, in these games where, let's face it, Pacheco's not going to be back, Kareem Hunt he probably won't be back. This guy is the only running back in the room who's played outside of those 2 guys, and you can't give him more than 10 carries to see what he can do. I just think that says a lot about who he is and what they think of him.
They talked about him as a kick returner. He's shown some life there. He did catch a touchdown in this game, but even the way they use him, it's not even like there's anything really creative about how they use him in the passing game. Andy Reid said early in the season, Sam, that he needs to get in the weight room. That tells you what he thinks about handing him the football. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, I think let's start there. I mean, it looks like a team that's hesitant to make this guy running back. He was a wide receiver most of his college career, became a running back his last year, and then they drafted him as a running back. It looks like a team that's hesitant to actually make him a full-time running back. And I think what you just said is a major reason why. I think they think he's too light to play the running back position, and that they will probably be giving him a plan in the offseason to gain 15 pounds. And hey, then let's see what this guy's got. But I actually look, I think there should be less frustration with Brashard Smith than there should be the other guys they're not playing, because at least you played Brashard Smith throughout the year. you know something of what you have from him. Whereas, you still don't know if Jaden Hicks is a starting safety for you, and therefore you don't know what you need to do with Brian Cook. You still don't know what you have at all in Jalen Royals. I mean, is he a run block specialist at wide receiver? You still don't know what you have at all in Jeff Bossa. Like Brashard Smith has played. You've got an evaluation of his time on the field that you don't have in those last two guys I mentioned. So I understand not like the frustration with not giving him the ball more as a running back, but I do think the weight is part of it. And I think that'll be part of the offseason plan as well. But I actually thought it was a really promising day for Brashard Smith because he was great in the return game. And that was a question we still had was, can he be a full-time returner? He looked like he could be a full-time returner.
Do you think that he can evolve into Jerick McKinnon, Jeff?
Oh, that's a huge ask because Jerick McKinnon actually was pretty decent as a pass blocker, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
He could hold up.
And he was listed, I think he was listed at 214.
Yeah.
Brashard Smith listed at 195.
Yeah, and it is crazy to think that Andy Reid's talking about getting the weight room. Like, how about you bring a scale to the combine so you can start weighing it? You don't look at the guy and know, this guy's pretty light. He's been doing this forever, Andy. we could weigh the guy. Okay, we know he's got to get heavier.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't see Jerick McKinnon. I see, to be honest with you, I see like Eric Metcalf light, like go back like 30 years. These kind of players who were just, if he was playing in the run and shoot, like in those kind of days, he would be a nice fit. But I just think if you're going to use him as a receiver primarily, you can probably find better guys who can help you in the run game as well. I don't think that's a luxury they can afford to have, but they're going to try to refigure this roster to have a better offense.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this, 7th round pick. If a 7th round pick turns out to be a good return man, you got value out of your 7th round pick.
I'd take that.
You'll take that.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair, but I think it's it's probably not the Chiefs as much as it is all the people outside. And I know why all the fans, let's play Brashard Smith. They're basically saying, not them, right? Not them. I've seen them, not them. I haven't seen this. Let me see this. And I don't think there's much to see here.
Let me ask you this, Soren. Like, go around the NFL. Where else do you see any other team with a running back who looks like him doing what he does? Like, I can't think of one. I see teams that have receiving backs who are bigger, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But even like the kid in Denver, RJ Harvey, who was a real running back in college, he's a bigger guy.
210, yeah. It's and at like 5'8" on him. So he's stoutly built. No, I agree. And I'm, I was pleased to see him catch the touchdown, but I'm really just surprised and frankly disappointed that they haven't found a way to work him into the passing game more, to be more creative with what they do. You thought, okay, he's been a wideout, so they're going to flex him out. They're going to get him isolated against a linebacker. We're going to see him, come out of the slot and that kind of thing. I thought, this could be this, their little hybrid guy, their Deebo Samuel type where,
Dexter McCluster.
I mean, like what people hope Dexter McCluster would be. Yeah. I mean, but
making a joke. Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't seen that. And we hadn't seen anything from Xavier Worthy again, Sam. I mean, 0 catches, 0. He's the Blutarski of receivers here. 0.0. On the I'm glad you got it, Jeff. I don't think Sam got it.
Like way over Sam.
You don't know who Blutarski is? No. John Belushi in Animal House.
Okay.
Okay, that's Blutarski.
Well, he was still only like 16 yards shy of leading the team. I think Kelsey had a good last drive to get in the 30s. Look, it reminded me of I actually had a line in my column afterwards that the only thing he struggles to find more than the end zone is the sideline, because he's got. Look, this has been a disappointing year. I mean, he's averaging basically the same yards per game he had as a rookie. And he's gotten in the end zone one time all year, and so like the jump hasn't made it. And I was actually thinking of Xavier Worthy in the context of this whole "is this Travis Kelce's last home game" conversation, and I thought, you know what? This is the Travis Kelce conversation is relevant for reasons beyond the emotion of it, beyond the sentimentality of Travis Kelce. It's relevant because the Chiefs still need Travis Kelce. And the reason the Chiefs still need Travis Kelce is because the 2 wide receivers that they've drafted, Rashee Rice has been on the field 12 games in the last 2 years combined. And it's his fault for 6 of those games that he missed. And Xavier Worthy has not developed in his second year. And so that's where that, him not being able to get his feet down on the sideline is like a reminder to me of, wow, is this team even ready to not have Travis Kelce? It'd be great if they didn't need Travis Kelce. They do still need Travis Kelce because of this conversation we're having about Xavier Worthy.
What's amazing is when they hand him the ball, he has his top 2 rushes total 41 yards. I think it's 38, and he's got a 38 and a 13, which means that he is like 9 for 40. So even then they cannot. This is a guy that seemingly people are like, well, you give him to the Chiefs. No, we don't want him. The Bills didn't mind trading down because he's not big enough. He's not strong enough. But damn, you put him with the Chiefs. You put him with the Chiefs, and it doesn't work, right? Like that's the frustrating part. It's like, okay, you're going to find ways to get him the ball, get him into space, and make it happen. That has not been the case. And, so the idea is he's going to be an all-around wideout. He's anything but, Jeff. I mean, like that's what's so frustrating is nobody else wanted to take him in the first round. I'm convinced of that. I'm not sure who they were trading up to get him from, who they thought they had to keep him away. The 49ers. I mean, does he look like a 49er receiver? Like that's who you thought they were going for? The Bills, who they traded with. I mean, the Bills clearly didn't care who you took. They had a couple of guys that they would have done. I don't even understand why you traded up. And then if you do, because he's so unique, it's got to be like, well, we're the ones who know how to use him. And he's pedestrian here. There's no flashes really whatsoever. There's a 1 long catch in a dead Super Bowl late. There's 1 long catch against a Charger team last year, and that's it in 2 full seasons of football.
Yeah, well, if you watch him enough, like to me, he's not great in space. So the idea of getting him in the ball in space, it doesn't lead to much because he doesn't have the same type of elusiveness. Not even like a Tyreek Hill, who's like a unicorn level of elusiveness. I would say the best comp for him probably should be a guy in Buffalo, Khalil Shakir. Like the way they use him, the things they do with him, throwing the ball in the flat, put him in motion. He can go down the field, be an intermediate guy. But that guy's elusive and he's very quick and hard to tackle. And he knows how to stay in bounds. To Sam's point, this guy, you want to run a quick out, you got to put him on the hash. He gets like 20 yards of space to work with before he blows the catch. It's look, I hate beating up on a guy in his second year, but I don't see where he's going to evolve and mature into something that's really more than a decent number 3 receiver for this.
Well,
team.
and I
he
think
would be a lot more than that.
Yeah, and we talked about it when they made the move, and I was like, look, I'm not trying to just beat this kid up here before he's ever even had a chance to do anything. But I'm like, when you move up, you cannot get Oz Akeem.
Yeah.
Right. That cannot be what this ends up, like he needs to be, at 30, I'm not saying you have to be Torrey Holt or Isaac Bruce, but the Rams had other guys. Oz Akeem was one of them. I'm like, that can't, because they were talking about him returning punts when they first drafted him and everything. I'm like, and that was kind of Oz Akeem's deal. Well, fortunately for Oz Akeem, he's not. He's not even Oz Akeem, because Oz Akeem in the NFL averaged 12.5, 19, 14, 10, 15, 9, 17, and 14 yards a catch. I know it was a different time, and the yards per catch has just been kind of eroding over time. But, I mean, he was a big play guy, and Xavier Worthy is not that. I mean, pointing to the 2 big plays he does have does not make him, I'll use the home run. There's another thing you put out there that's not nearly as nice. But, hit 1 home run, you're not a home run hitter, right? Like, that's not it. Just because you cleared the wall once. Well, he's not a big play guy because he's got a couple on his resume. That's what's so frustrating is he seemed uniquely, like for them to make that move, he had to be uniquely perfect for what you do, and he's not. That's what's
well think about this. And like he's struggling. AD Mitchell, who came out, played in Texas with him, like he's already been moved to a different team.
Yeah.
And Brian Thomas, who had a great rookie season in Jacksonville, Liam Cohen hates him. He's falling out of favor there real fast. So I don't know what happened with him, but he's clearly got some issues. And so maybe it's more of how they were using Texas. Maybe these guys got overhyped But I will say the speed part of this that they fell in love with, and they have to break with this too, because what we're learning is having speed doesn't mean what it used to mean in the NFL anymore. And so we had Bucky Brooks, co-worker of mine, friend of mine, scout, longtime scout. He talked about this. He's like, speed is one of the most overrated parts of being a great NFL receiver. You look at the best receivers in the league, most of them are not burners. They're guys who understand tempo. They have great spatial awareness. They've got great feel for the game. Great ball handling, great hands. This guy doesn't have hardly any of that stuff. He's fast, and that's it.
Yeah, Puka Nacua can't clock much, but he was like one-handed.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, like it's the ability to make the defender take a step the wrong direction, and he has none of that. Like, you know, if you're 4.5, that's fast enough. If you get the guy to go left when you're going right, then you're wide open, and they don't seem to have any of that ability. I mean,
yeah, I'm first of all, I'm glad you've come around on Puka, not just being part of the system.
I think he can flat out play, but I mean, I do think the system is pretty good for all the receivers there.
Yeah, but the guy's a stud. But he ran I just looked at it, 4.57 40. It's an interesting point, Jeff, because you know these guys that I'd be interested to compare the correlation graph, because there's certainly a limit to it. You've got to have some speed.
Yeah.
And that's part of
a minimum requirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Stren, you mentioned the punts for Xavier Worthy, because we heard about that, obviously, and he returned in Texas. And I was thinking the game that they put him back once, basically just to fair catch the ball, that they said they didn't tell him that. And I thought, would returning punts help him regain some of his elusiveness? Because it's playing in a little bit more space, at least on the immediate part of the catch, and you're required to try and make guys miss in a way that we don't even see him really try to make guys miss. We see him play outside the numbers and run out of bounds all the time. Like, we don't see him cut in space. And like punt returning, there is some of that. And I thought, maybe this like rebuilds this muscle memory in his brain somehow, because I remember that first game he had against the Ravens. And look, one of those was a busted coverage, but the running play, remember the cut he made to follow his block to score on the end around? We haven't seen him do that all year, to where he just takes one cut in the dirt and suddenly he's gone. He's through this to the second level. And we just don't really see him used in that way. We don't really see – I don't know if he's thinking in that manner.
I would not be shocked if we find out that immediately after the game that – and I would think that you might have already done this if this was the case, but does he have shoulder surgery and he's been playing hurt and he's avoiding contact at all costs? Because of that, that's why they don't want to put him back there, which is the reason why you don't draft him as high as you did. I mean, it's simple physics.
I will say if that's
out of 3 games.
If that's the case – you should have shut him down and had the surgery already.
Agreed, for sure. And so I don't think that's going to end up being the case. The Chiefs allow only 1 sack in this game, Jeff. You know, a couple of practice squad offensive tackles out there. I mean, what's the takeaway from that?
I would be very encouraged by that. I thought it was going to be a disaster. I thought they were going to just run a rough shot over Oladokun and just probably set the record for sacks. Probably had like 25 sacks, have a couple guys airlifted over to Menorah Medical Center. But they held up. And I think the Broncos were frustrated by that. It felt like just watching the game on TV and just, you know, look, maybe they felt like we're going to win the game no matter what. But I thought that that offensive line acquitted itself pretty well, given what they were up against. And they've done it twice against the Broncos. The Broncos haven't had the kind of success that they usually have against these kinds of, especially bad offensive lines, beaten up offensive lines.
Yeah. What the offensive line, what was the takeaway? More about the O-line, more about the scheming they did to protect the quarterback? What did you take away, Sam?
Well, this is where pressures and sacks have a distinct difference, because like the Broncos run the backfield a decent amount. I mean, they still pressured 40% of the dropbacks. But yeah, I mean, Esapole to me has not earned a starting spot somewhere, but he's very clearly earned a roster spot here. And he very clearly should have already earned a roster spot here. It wasn't because of the game plan, because Oladokun held the ball like the 4th longest we've seen someone hold the ball against the Broncos. pretty equal with what Patrick Mahomes did when he was against the Broncos. But Patrick Mahomes' numbers are always elevated because he scrambles on some plays, and Oladokun only scrambled twice in the game. So they weren't throwing short and quick in the game. I mean, I thought the line did – I agree with Jeff. They did better than I anticipated. But really, actually, when I went back and watched it on Friday, the guys who struggled actually were the vets. I mean, I didn't think Reed Humphrey had a great day. I didn't think Kingsley Suamadiya had a great day. And I thought the tackles were fine in the game.
I think there's an element of the Broncos also throwing their helmets out there, right? Like, oh, we got this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Tim Grunhard tells the story of him and Bill Moss being on the radio the week of playing. I can't remember who it was. And Bill Moss said on the radio, we'll just throw our helmets out there. We got this one. They lost, and Marty Schottenheimer losing his mind on them, you know, for having that approach to it. So it does happen. And I think there was an element of that from Denver, and they still got away with a win, right? That speaks to how far down the Chiefs were on it. But yeah, the Esapole one, you know, you've got to know your roster better than others, you know, and it's clear they didn't. Or they're making decisions based upon what makes them look better. Wanya Morris was a draft pick. Esapole wasn't. Are we really going to cut a draft pick and keep this guy? Right? Like it goes back to what we were talking about, the overall roster. Like you can't be keeping guys because you want the draft pick to look good. If you're going to overhaul this roster, you got to make decisions and go find guys. You know, it's just like they've got to take a long look at how they put this team together. Right? Like your tight ends, their tight ends are a high school wideout and two high school quarterbacks. And if I'm wrong on Noah Gray being a wideout, he sure as hell looks like he used to be a wideout. But the other two,
I thought he was
the quarterback.
He was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Gray was a quarterback as well.
Yeah.
Wiley was a quarterback.
Gray was the
Kelsey was a quarterback.
Yeah.
Gray was the emergency quarterback actually against the Titans if Oladokun had gotten hurt that game.
Okay, so I guess he's got. Yeah, I mean, like at some point, you know, the Washington kid at Pittsburgh, you need one of those guys, right? You're gonna like they've got to start. They've got to really take a look at what they're doing. You can't be making mistakes with Esapole and you know trying to make everybody into Travis Kelsey, and you know you got to have some diversity on your roster there.
And that's I was going to make that point of Esapole to me is not just an interesting story in and of himself. He's representative of the way this entire year has gone, as far as the Elijah Mitchells, the Christian Fultons, the Mike Dana, Derek Nottie, Mike Pennell situation. What are they really looking at? And again, going back to the play calling with Andy, have they gotten to the point in the front office where they're just like, we can make anything work. We're good.
The Elijah Mitchell is because J.K. Dobbins and Javonte Williams, I know Dobbins again didn't make it through the year, but when he did play, like always, he's really productive. And
maybe more than Elijah Mitchell did.
Both those guys made about the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Right? Like it wasn't like, oh, well, they paid those guys $5 million and we only had 1.5. They were all in like the $2.5 to $3 million range.
You know what the difficulty and the uncomfortable part about that is? They signed late, and that's why they signed cheaper. And I wonder, like, this isn't really a team that can afford to be patient at the running back position, though, even though that wound up being where those good deals were to be had.
But you say that, Sam, and yes, they could have, because they didn't even play Elijah.
Well, last offseason, absolutely. I'm talking about this offseason. You need to solve that. You need to solve that position. The best deals in last year's offseason market were after the waves of free agency were gone, and so I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see.
Javonte Williams, the free agent again.
Yeah,
Javonte Williams, free agent again.
J.K. Dobbins too. I think they're all on one-year deals. All those backs are on one-year deals. I mean, I think this will be the duplication, like after the Bucs Super Bowl loss, where they're signing and drafting. Like, I think you're going to see a running back signed, and I think you're going to see – I'll tell you the guy that I think would be a good fit for them, but they're going to have to spend some money on him if they can find it, is Tyler Algier in Atlanta as a free agent. And, it's just because they went and got one of the best running back, prospects in a number of years that he doesn't play more. But he played and played well, and he would be a significant upgrade. I mean, to me, he's kind of Priest Holmes behind Jamal Lewis. I'm not saying he's going to be Priest Holmes when he comes here, but like that guy that he's done it. But I also think there's going to be plenty of teams that are like, yeah, we're going to pay him. Like, I don't think you're going to get him 1 for 3.
How cruel to Tyler Algier if he goes someplace and then they draft a running back, because that's exactly what happened to him in Atlanta.
And that's what will happen here, right? Because I think you have Tyler Algier, you feel better. But I think you also want. I don't think they're just going to put one Band-Aid on it. They're going to.
I agree. Yeah.
They're going to take a couple of shots at it. So we'll see. One more big game to talk about. We'll do it on Friday when we talk about the Chiefs and the Raiders. Can't wait for that. That's always the best. Like a game where. By the way, I went on in Vegas, and I know, like I said, we're going to break that game down later on. But I went on in Vegas, and you know what the theme was of the conversation? How is it that the Chiefs even know how to tank better than the Raiders? That was the theme of the conversation I had in Vegas today because of the Chiefs IRing everybody. Anyway, we'll do that on Friday. Remember, you can always support the Red, Gold, and Bold by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Kansas City's best for more than 30 years. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com and by Northland Injury Law. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. They've been serving KC for 40 years. Voted KC's #1 accident lawyers. You've got a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and